best in the world!
Unbelievably, it's 20 years to the day since English rally driver Richard Burns won the 2001 World Rally Championship at the wheel of his iconic Subaru Impreza. As only the second ever British WRC champion after Colin McRae in 1995, Burns matched devastating speed with sure-footed consistency to amass a total of 10 wins and 34 podiums in the top tier of rallying, in a period where McRae and Burns battled it out at the front of a field that included legends like Tommy Mäkinen, Marcus Gronholm, Carlos Sainz, Petter Solberg and Sebastian Loeb.
Britain had never had such rallying talent on a world stage before, or since, so it was a truly exciting time to be a bobblehatter.
With it being the 20th anniversary of his WRC title, we felt it was the perfect moment to reflect on the life and career of Richard Burns. As sim racers, it's not just his exploits on closed roads that are worth discussing, but also the epic rally sim that bore his name, Richard Burns Rally. Richard Burns' love affair with cars stemmed from driving his father's Triumph 2000 in a field near his house. It was, however, a trip to Jan Churchill's Welsh Forest Rally School in 1986 that really spiked Burns' interest in rallying, and from that point on he was determined to reach the very top of the sport. Early events in an uncompetitive Talbot Sunbeam didn't deter the young Burns, and by 1990 benefactor David Williams had purchased a Peugeot 205 GTI, with which he entered the National 205 GTI Championship. After impressing in this and other Group N outings supported by ProDrive, Burns joined the Subaru Rally team to win the British Rally Championship in 1993, the series' youngest ever winner. For 1994 he stepped up to World Championship level, and after part seasons in the iconic Group A 555 Subaru Impreza in 1994 and 95, Burns and longtime co-driver and friend Robert Reid switched to Mitsubishi. They showed steady progress in their 3-year tenure, culminating in the crew's first WRC victory on the 1998 Safari Rally, perhaps the toughest event on the calendar. They followed this up by winning their home event later that year, Wales Rally GB.
Burns would switch back to Subaru for 1999, and the next 3 seasons would go on to define his career.
In this period, he never finished lower than second in the championship, and in 2001 he took the overall crown after a stirring Battle of Britain with Colin McRae through the Welsh forests on their home event.
For 2002, despite winning the championship, Burns was getting frustrated with his Subaru's failings, so switched to Peugeot, and reportedly had to buy himself out of his contract for £1 million.
It was a tough first season for the crew as they struggled to get on terms with teammate Marcus Gronholm. His trademark grit and determination shone through, however, and nowhere was this more apparent than when they became stuck in a particularly soft patch of sand heading towards service on the Safari Rally. Faced with the impossible task of extricating their stricken Peugeot, Burns and Reid tried everything to release it from the clutches of the unforgiving Kenyan sandpit, the torturous heat and sheer physical effort taking its toll on a despairing Burns, head in hands, showing how much this meant to him. Although a quiet, unassuming character, he had an inner confidence and fierce will to win at all costs, and it showed on this day.
In 2003, he finally found his feet with the French manufacturer and put together a string of podium finishes which catapulted him into title contention, heading into the final round, yet again, Rally GB.
Sadly, it wasn't meant to be. In the build-up to the event, Burns suffered a blackout while driving on the M4 motorway towards Cardiff. He lost consciousness, but miraculously avoided further incident as the car was steered to safety from the passenger seat by fellow WRC driver and friend Marco Martin. We now know that Burns was battling the effects of the malignant brain tumour that would eventually claim his life. Tragically, he passed away on the 25th of November 2005, exactly 4 years to the day from his greatest triumph. In Britain, Burns' rallying legacy has been somewhat overshadowed by the flamboyant McRae and his "if in doubt, flat out" mantra. This is a little misleading, as Burns has a higher podium finishing rate than McRae, and on many occasions the Englishman was seen as the man to beat in the WRC, as well as being the outright championship favourite, which is full credit to his ability when you consider the depth of talent the championship had at the time. In some ways, the same could be said about the pair's gaming franchises, in that McRae's rally games were far more popular and accessible than Burns' single effort. Notably, all games bearing McRae's name up to 2004 were highly rated by critics and fans alike, so when RBR arrived on the scene the same year, it faced stiff opposition to become the #1 rally game, especially when you consider WRC4 and Rally Sport Challenge 2 offered similar rally thrills at the time. Did RBR emerge as the best? Well, we think so. The game faced mixed reviews, however, with many critics struggling with its brutally vertical learning curve and rather bland presentation. Most, however, acknowledged it was a true simulation of the sport.
It was completely and utterly unforgiving, just like real rallying, and required a considered and measured approach to win rallies.
This is in stark contrast to Colin McRae Rally 2005 and the Colin McRae Dirt series that followed, where cars felt like they had way too much grip and reacted instantly to the player's inputs.
So, simulation versus arcade? Calculated style versus all action? That sums up Burns versus McRae perfectly.
Burns took on an advisory role with the game and was on hand to offer hints on how a rally car should behave on stage. The developers, keen to move away from wide open track maps already found in the genre, worked hard to improve and emphasise the road grading on special stages, as after discussions with Burns they were unhappy with how cars reacted to cambers. So you have Burns to thank for the sheer euphoria that comes from nailing Sheridan Head's high-speed compressions and ruts.
The other key thing about RBR was how you had to plan ahead.
You couldn't barrel into a sequence of tight corners and hope to rely on reactions alone to make it through safely. You had to plan ahead, consider how much you needed to slow the car down, determine your turn-in point, check if there were any potholes and adverse camber to think about, then think about how much throttle you could use on corner exit to prevent wheel spin, all whilst listening to detailed pace notes read by Reid. These days, RBR has been enhanced through mods made by a legion of rally fans. The graphics, sounds and physics have all been improved, with numerous extra rally stages added, complete with the implementation of online functionality. For me, this cements the game's status as the finest rally simulator ever created. Another interesting feature was the Rally School. In it, Burns guides you through some increasingly tough challenges to build confidence and skill before heading to the main game. You can get away with doing the basics, but tackling the advanced challenges require a lot more patience and ability, and they remain a stern test for any serious rally sim racer.
The next two exercises will help you to understand how you can cause the car to oversteer and how to use this to your advantage.
There's a lot of information provided by Burns, and for many, this was the first time they had come across properly detailed explanation of rallying techniques.
Use throttle and brake to create oversteer.
Burns even demonstrates them, his car an uncatchable ghost to compare your rallying skills to.
Colin McRae's rally games were undoubtedly a bigger commercial success, but for a more visceral and raw rallying experience, Richard Burns' rally was the #1 choice.
As we've already hinted, Burns and McRae were pitched as different personalities with contrasting driving styles. McRae was spectacular, more natural, more reactive, while Burns was more analytical, calculated, but ultimately less quick.
Like all black and white statements, there are shades of grey, as both drivers were fast and well capable of beating each other on speed alone.
For example, from 1999 until 2001, Burns had the greatest number of fastest stage times of anyone in the WRC, belying his perceived reputation. Burns was fastidious in his approach to rallying, and co-driver Robert Reid often describes the detailed note systems he and Burns worked on throughout their career. In fact, the preciseness of the notes enabled Burns to take chunks of time out of his opponents in foggy conditions. He couldn't see the road ahead, but he could definitely hear it. The rivalry between McRae and Burns was built up by the British press, and this came to a head with their battle for the championship on Rally GB in 2001, known as the Battle of Britain. Neither driver talked the rivalry down, but in private they got on as well as rivals fighting over a world championship possibly could.
Reid even conceded that McRae and Burns worked together to engineer a smooth transition when the Englishman moved to Subaru in 1999, with McRae going to Ford.
In his final months, while battling the effects of cancer and radiotherapy, Burns wanted to set up a charity with the aim to improve the circumstances of others dealing with neurological injury and illness like he was, the culmination of which was the Richard Burns Foundation. The board of directors included motorsport photographer and friend Colin McMaster, Robert Reid and his partner Zoe Scott, as well as his former boss at Subaru, David Lapworth. With the help of family, friends and ex-colleagues, the Richard Burns Foundation has had a positive impact on the lives of many individuals facing life-changing illness.
Burns' death wasn't reported widely by the British press, coming on the same day as the passing of Northern Irish footballing legend George Best. However, the real tragedy of the story is that Burns was only 34 years old.
He was in the prime of his life and career when illness took hold, and without this tragic turn of events would have undoubtedly added to his single championship victory. He faced his illness with determination and bravery, but it was a shock seeing him become so ill so quickly, because to many, Burns was an indestructible daredevil rally driver, performing superhuman feats behind the wheel, steering a car through a narrow ribbon of gravel at 100 miles per hour with no fear. As sim racing fans, Richard Burns is a name we associate with a tremendously engaging rally game, perhaps the best rally experience we've ever seen, but to millions more he will be remembered as a true British rallying hero. What are your favourite memories of Richard Burns? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe to the Traxion channel for more racing and rallying content in the future, and hit the notification bell if you want to catch these videos as they are released. Until then, thanks for watching, keep it pinned, and have a great day.